Hello, it's Romanosky and Aidan Goss, shooting from Calgary, Canada, from the lug nuts facility. And what we have here is a JDM 2010 Lexus HS250h. So this is Lexus's first hybrid and the world's first luxury hybrid. So we're going to do a driving video as part of the Bring a Trailer auction. This car is going up, no reserve. Now, before we get started on this driving video, I know there's going to be people out there that are going to say, well, what's a Lexus 250h doing on BAT anyway? That isn't an enthusiast car. You know, BMW 3 Series and Audi RSs and Porsche 911s are enthusiast cars. Or even a Lexus IS, but what's a Lexus HS, which is essentially a larger, more luxurious Prius? What on earth is that doing on Bring a Trailer? And so part of this video is just going to be showing that this car operates correctly and it works correctly. It doesn't have any problems or check engine lights or whatever. But the other part of it will be a narration from me on why I think this is actually kind of a cool car and an interesting car, and why, you know, and why we can bring the camera over here, and why we can be in a shop like this filled with, other classically, let's call it, interesting machinery, and why this car can be included with all of these because of its technical merit. Okay, so we have the Lexus outside, and well, the sun's actually out, and we can get maybe a better look at the paint when it's in the sun compared to inside. And it's this Lexus Pearl, and it's really gorgeous, actually. I think Lexus probably paints half their cars this color, so you've seen it before. But it's really nice, and like I went through with the exterior walk-around video, it's basically flawless. So when this car came out, the styling was criticized, but I actually don't see it. I mean, nobody buys a Lexus sedan, or frankly, most small sedans, thinking they're the most beautiful mechanical sculptures ever devised. But I actually find the car quite attractive, quite purposeful. It's really devoid of any sort of silly styling effects. It doesn't have big diffusers or flame surfacing or boxed fenders or any kind of crazy aerodynamic appendages or whatever. It's not trying to be anything other than an efficient sedan, and it is. The CD is 0.27, which is excellent for a large mid-size four-door sedan. And I actually find the whole thing quite pleasing. But more than that, it's well packaged, and for the footprint, it gives you quite a bit of interior room. So, I don't know. I actually quite like it. And when I compare it against the, I had a Lexus ES350, and it was a perfectly nice car, but there was nothing about that car that made me want to drive it or want to own it. It was a fine machine, but this actually is different. This is on two accounts. One of them is that I really do like the styling in and out, and the second is that I think it has a great technical merit, which I'll get into in this drive. But anyway, I just wanted to do a walk around in the sun, see how nice the car looks. Also in the paint meter report, I had come to the conclusion that it was likely that the hood had been repainted, although it was the original hood. And so sometimes, especially with metallic, especially with pearl, they're extremely hard to match. And geez, they did a if it was in fact repainted. I mean, I don't know that for sure. Could have just been done at the factory. I don't know. But I'm not picking up any variation in the color whatsoever. And maybe we can just pan across the front of the car, because I'm not seeing any evidence at all of any sort of a mismatch between the bumper cover, the hood, and the fenders. And I can tell you, if you take this to a body shop and say, match the paint on my front bumper cover, you'll get a loud groan from everybody. It's very, very difficult with pearl colors. So I don't know. I don't know what happened to this hood. And like I said, it may just have been a top coat of the, because it's a 3-part coat to get the pearl. The top coat is, it's almost like the pearl's built into the clear. So it could just be that it got that, but nothing else. Anyway, when you're looking at it in the sun, I can't tell. There's absolutely no difference from the bonnet from the rest of the car. Looking at the car without the paint meter, you would not know that anything has been repainted. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. I'll start it up so Aidan can show you what comes out of the tailpipe. I mean, this is a 33,000 kilometer Toyota. We're not expecting, we're not going to be able to show you anything, but anyway, we'll demonstrate that anyway. And then we'll just get a look at the engine compartment, put the microphone around various places in the engine and make sure that demonstrate that there's no noises from any of the valve train or ancillaries, etc. So I'll go and start the car now. Okay, so I'm sure that was uneventful. And let's just take a look at the engine. I'll put the microphone in various places. Let's get a shot of this. There's nothing. It's not doing anything strange. It's all perfectly normal. If we look at the exhaust, it is kind of unusual. That's the cat right there, the catalytic converter that's built into the exhaust manifold. Underneath this car, there's a very complex stainless steel muffler. And when I was, yeah, now it's shutting off because it's on battery. I'll flash a picture of that. When I looked under the car, I actually thought it was the catalytic converter, but I couldn't understand the design of it because there was an air valve and some other stuff in there. And what in fact that is a heat recovery system where we've got the downstream of the catalytic converter, we've got a silencer, and then that is wrapped in a shroud, which then collects the heat from that and puts it back into the cabin, the heat exchanger for the heat for the cabin, and to help warm the engine up. Helping to warm the engine up faster by recirculating that hot air speeds up the warm-up process, which reduces emissions, and then that heat is also used to make the interior heat up a little bit faster. Okay, so that's what that big kind of silencer assembly is, just after the catalytic converter. But let's get in the car. Okay, so certainly ingress and egress is a Lexus Forte. The doors open really wide. The sill is low. Of course, we have the seat that moves back for you. So we have this question, or I have this question. I know the car is gonna. I mean, I've read all the reviews on the car when it was new, and we just put it on BAT, and you know, BAT's full of all these kind of really kind of cool, interesting cars. Most of them, you know, in some way, enthusiast cars, or what's classically called an enthusiast car, a high performance car, or some sort of odd car. And the Lexus, almost by definition, is day-to-day transport. This is an A to B car that people use to get somewhere. In this case, it's sort of forte, or you know, reason for being, is that it combines a luxury experience, luxury interior, controls, amenities, you know, options, and so on, with, you know, very excellent fuel consumption, rated at, you know, under 6 liters per 100 kilometers. So those two things hadn't come together before this car, and they're still pretty rare today. You can get hybridized luxury cars, but the hybrid bit of it is more extra performance. It's not really for efficiency. Like if you take a Lexus 600H, or you take, even some of the other Toyotas. The hybrid's mostly there for additional performance, or with some sports cars like torque fill to give you some low RPM torque where the combustion engine is too highly tuned on its own to provide much performance from slower engine speeds. Okay, so it's a rarity to get a luxury car that's focused on economy. The thinking, I suppose, is that if you pay lots of money for a luxury car, maybe you don't care about how much gas you use. But that isn't really true. There's lots of people who are more socially conscious, who want a luxury experience, but also don't want to use any more fuel than they have to. Okay. So I'm certainly not going to go down the woke rabbit hole. I think this car is interesting because of its technical merit. And I think, like, as a car enthusiast and as somebody who's owned everything from a Mercedes Unimog to a Lotus Super 7 to a vintage Bentley to late model Ferrari and Astons and like literally everything in between, I get a lot of satisfaction out of hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles, which seem to many to be incompatible with being an enthusiast. But the way I look at it is that I'm an engineering enthusiast first and foremost, and I don't see the enthusiast car being limited to clipping apexes and trail braking and getting a lap time and so on. And in fact, I see, I agree with people like James May who say that these cars developed on the Nürburgring, it just wrecks the cars because this car, for its application, is designed for getting from A to B in as most comfort using as little fuel as possible. And there are significant engineering resources that have been put toward achieving that, and that is actually really difficult. And then there's this whole other level of difficulty in creating this complex powertrain that enables performance and luxury and low fuel consumption, and then making it last 300,000 kilometers without anything breaking. Now that is a masterful technical production achievement. So that's why I'm interested in the car. So ultimately, the engineering that goes into a car is going to be, or should be, developed for a specific purpose. And the engineering itself, in terms of the processes and so on, it isn't that different whether you're engineering a car to go around the Nürburgring in the lowest possible lap time, or to be able to carry 4 people in comfort over a distance using the least amount of fuel. The same processes are used, and the same engineering advances, I think, can be celebrated. And for the car enthusiast who is also an engineering enthusiast, I think there's a lot about this car and the Priuses actually, that is really super cool stuff, and that driving the car, being aware of the technology in it, being able to monitor it, and then be able to adapt your driving style to get the most out of it, for me, is at least as rewarding than trying to get my lap times down. It's just different. And the benefit is that, I don't have to get my spare tires and throw them in the car and drive for 3 hours and sit at a hot racetrack all day to get any enjoyment out of the car, not to mention the cost. I can enjoy this car driving my kids to school, which I do every single day. All right. Seat slides back, wheel retracts, and if I hit it once, I'm in the accelerator, or I'm in the accessory position. The screen goes up, and then if I put my foot on the brake and hit power again, then I get the ready sign. If I just hit the power again, everything else comes on, but it doesn't say ready, and I don't go anywhere. Okay, so you got to put your foot on the brake to get that. We get this beeping here from the, that's a dash cam that could easily be just clipped out or the wires removed. And for whatever reason, it's unhappy and it beeps at you until you hit the button. Presumably because it saw something, I guess. And there's a data card that you can put in there. So if you want to use that, dash cam, we can keep it there. The other thing is that there's this little Japanese lady who Well, not sure what she's saying, but it's part of the ETC, or electronic toll booth, and that lives, where's the ETC on this car? It's in a little, yeah, there it is, that ETC. So that's so when you go through tolls in Japan, it'll automatically charge your credit card without you having to stop. Okay, so that could also be removed, and then if you do that, it takes out that little Japanese voice, but I kind of like her. You know, as you'd expect in a Lexus, you've got, you know, the power memory seats, and I don't know what these are, 10-way adjustable electric front end passenger seats. So we have the wheel, which is electrically adjustable for tilt and telescope. Of course, we have the, you know, the sunroof, which works perfectly. And then it can also tilt up, of course. So, okay, that's sort of normal. So we've got all of that. We have our ventilation, ventilated seats and heated seats. The leather's perforated. There's actually 3 kinds of leather on the seat, which is kind of interesting. These little highlights are a different color. Keyless entry, keyless locking. We've got to put up the pole again. So let's do that. You got to see the pole. We got to leave the pole up. All right, how can you not love that? This sort of haptic mouse, which controls the center screen. It's in Japanese, but if you have a translate app on your phone, it's pretty easy enough to just decode that. And that'll show us what's going on with the electric motor, battery, and combustion engine. Okay. So we'll get started now. We've got our power folding mirrors. We've got instrument illumination. We've got our sunshade in the back, which I'm just retracting now. Okay, give us a bit more light there. We also have a front view camera, and this is split. I think it gives you like 180 degrees right on the front bumper. Okay, so that comes in handy for parking and so on. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. We have 3 modes: EV, Eco, and Power. Fairly self-explanatory. Climate control system, CD and cassette, and it's got a hard drive in it too. Okay, so that's that. We can elect to open and close the center display, and that all works perfectly. 12 volt and USB. Yeah, 2010, it's got a USB. One of the first cars to have that. Okay. On the steering wheel, we've got our phone, we've got hands-free, we've got our menu, Parktronic, our schematic here for the hybrid system. We've got some more modes. Oh, I see. I'm getting the stereo when I'm doing that. Okay. And that is the CD, which I need to turn off before YouTube gets mad at me. Okay. So we will be on our way. A little bit more about this. So we've got, you know, putting in park, you hit that, and then drive, reverse, and neutral. The B bit is I think it stands for braking. But you hit that when you want to engage more regenerative braking, like when you're pulling up to a stop. Or, you know, you're at the top of a hill or something like that and you want to use the electric motor to aid in the braking of the car instead of the friction brakes. Okay, so let's get going on our drive. Let's go for a drive. We'll put it in D and then go. And I like to watch both the schematic of the, you know, you can see the combustion engine isn't on right now. And if I keep a really, really, really light throttle, you know, I can drive around for, oh, I don't know, a couple of kilometers just with the battery. I think it's about 1 kilowatt hour. Now I press the gas a little bit more, and the combustion engine fires. I'm not even really that apparent that it started. We can see our batteries at 3 bars, and so the car is going to try to increase the charge in the battery, and so we can see that the combustion engine is powering both the wheels and a generator, and it's turning the wheels, and it's also charging the battery at the same time. Okay, engine, get to a stop, the engine turns off, and then all the climate control and so on is being powered by the battery alone. What I really notice about hybrids, and particularly the Toyota Synergy drive system, which isn't in all their hybrids, but it's their original system in the Prius, and it's in this car, is that you realize how much of the time during a drive you don't need your combustion engine. In other words, you need the engine to accelerate, but you don't need the engine often to maintain a steady speed if it's not for very long. You don't need the engine to be on when you're stopped at a light, and you don't need the engine on to be when you're decelerating. So that is the main advantage of the Toyota's hybrid Synergy drive. Also, by being in tune with your car like this, you get a sense for what's going to make the difference between fuel economy and basically trying to drive with the engine off as much as you can, and that influences the way you drive and your throttle applications and so on. So you find yourself really adapting to the car and to try to maximize your fuel economy by getting a feel for what the car is doing. And maybe it's taking a bigger radius through a corner and trying to carry more speed, or blowing through that light because you don't want to stop because you don't want to turn the engine on again. That's bad. But I find it really quite interesting, and especially every day, this is something to put my mind to use, and it's gratifying to see that you've made a difference in your fuel economy and stuff. So that's why I think that it's not incongruous to be just as excited about a Toyota Prius or a Lexus HS than the latest performance car. In fact, designing a car with 2 electric motors, a battery pack, and something that has all of the comfort, convenience, safety options, putting that all together and making it last 300,000 kilometers without any major failures, and seeing your hybrids at like every airport, because that's basically what every cab driver in the world drives right now, that is a massive technical achievement. I mean, that's thousands of people's work for a decade. Now, 10 guys can make a hypercar in like less than a year, okay? Making a hypercar that just does one thing isn't actually that hard. You don't have to worry about comfort. You don't have to worry about ingress and egress. You don't have to worry about longevity. You don't have to worry about servicing costs. You don't have to worry about anything except, making it look cool, and producing some good numbers like once, okay? That isn't that hard. Making a car like this that does everything, that lasts a long time, that's reliable, that's safe, that is hard. And so I'm a lot more interested in what goes into these hybrid drivetrains than what goes into the latest hypercar, because I know this is a lot harder. And then there's people that are going to say oh well a Toyota doesn't have or a Lexus doesn't have the steering feel, it doesn't have the brake feel. Oh, the steering's not as sharp as a BMW 3 Series, or the throttle response isn't as immediate as BMW 3 Series. It doesn't have that V8 rumble of whatever, the Mercedes AMG. To that I would say, all that stuff's great, when the car is new. And you know, the computerized air suspension might sort of give you a better window or a bigger window for the comfort versus sport. And you know, the variable ratio power steering, you know, that changes the steering ratio depending on the speed. Well, you know, that might be pretty cool, and you might get a little bit better steering feel. And the double Vanos, you know, ultra sophisticated valve train coupled with the two turbos that are all packed together in the engine bay, and the engine that gives the the greatest, you know, response with the low end torque and so forth, and has the nicest exhaust note. Well, that's great when the car is new, but when it's 15 years old and, you know, you have to replace your variable ratio steering rack for $9,000, or, you know, put, you know, a new air suspension on 4 corners at $2,000 a corner, or your double Vanos packs up and it goes to the dealer, and you phone the BMW and Mercedes dealer, and it's 5 weeks to get your car in, and the labor rate in Calgary is, I don't know, $185 an hour, you know, and you're spending, you know, 50% of your car's value every year on servicing cost. It gets old. It doesn't matter as much. You know, you're not gonna walk out of your BMW dealer after spending 15 grand and say, you know, on your car that's worth 20, and then say, oh yeah, but I have the best steering feel. You know, you're just gonna be mad. Okay, so that's why Toyotas and Lexuses, you know, obviously hold their value really well, is because, you know, you can have this car with 300,000 kilometers on it and have done nothing to it the whole time. It just works. Okay. And that's why you basically go to any airport and you go look at the staging ground for all of the cabs and so on, and it's like, you know, 95% of them are Toyotas, and a good portion of those are hybrids. And, you know, when I'm in those cars, I always ask the guy about the car. How many kilometers on it? Oh, 400. What have you done to it? Well, nothing. I mean, you don't even put brakes on the car because it's you know, it's you use the regenerative brakes most of the time. Okay, so, you know, going back to the initial reviews on this car that I read, which I thought were totally off base. One, they didn't like the look of it, but I actually think it's a good looking car. So certainly no worse looking than any other four-door sedan at the time, and I actually like it better. And then going on, oh, they don't like the CVT gearbox because it doesn't have a nice engine note, or, you know, they want to, you know, have shift through the gears with their paddle shifters, or, you know, the steering isn't that sharp, or whatever. Well, 15 years later, when you get a car and it's not going to cost you anything to maintain, you'll be perfectly happy with the steering and the suspension of the car. Okay, and I actually think that the looks have done quite well. Like, it's, you know, I see what they mean about the 2.4 liter Toyota engine not being too melodious, but the thing is, most of the time you don't even hear it, or even aware. Like right now, I'm going 80 kilometers an hour and the engine's off, and it'll stay off for quite a long time because I'm going down this long downhill stretch. I'm going from 80 kilometers to 60 kilometer through a construction zone, and I'm not going to have to turn on this motor until I'm all the way through this thing and I start climbing the hill again. And then you start to think, okay, well, like, shouldn't all cars do that? Like, well, why does the engine have to go when obviously this engine doesn't have to run? It can just turn off. Okay, and then it's got enough battery power to keep the momentum of the car. So even on a light uphill, I still have the engine off. So, you know, there can be journeys where half the time the engine isn't working. Okay, and it's like, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? You know? Okay, so now I'm in the accelerator, the engine fires up. We can see that the battery's been charging the generator's been charging the battery, so now the battery's got full bars on it. Okay, so that's actually a good indication that your battery is still in good shape if you get all those bars. But anyway, it just, you drive this car. Do I care that it doesn't make a melodious noise at 6,000 RPM? No, I don't care. I don't even have a tachometer in this car. It's just not a relevant thing. You know, this car is quiet. I can't feel any of this stuff going on. Whether the engine's on or the engine's off, I hardly even notice. It's just not the point, okay? But I'm in a nice cabin. Visibility is excellent. Road noise is good. It's quiet inside. It's comfortable. I've got all the comfort, convenience items. And this car achieves its engineering objective, I think, quite brilliantly. This car didn't have a long production life. It came out as a new model in 2010, and the other Lexus cars were the IS, which was the rear-wheel drive, smaller car than this, kind of BMW 3 Series competitor. And then there was the ES, the mid-size car, and then the big LS. And so this is a little bit smaller than an ES, although I did have an ES 350 and didn't really seem any smaller, not on the front anyway. Maybe there's a little bit more legroom in an ES than this, but it slots in between the IS and the ES. So then fast forward a few years, and then Lexus decides then, and it didn't sell that well, Lexus decides then to come up with something with a seat like a CT200, and that's basically exactly a Prius, just with a Lexus body on it. And then they made a hybrid version of the ES350, ES300. So instead of just having one luxury hybrid, basically Lexus split it in two, and then had a smaller one that was basically just a Prius with a new body, and then they hybridized the ES, and that kind of left this one nowhere. And so it was, so this model was discontinued. But I mean, I think it looks better than an ES. I think it looks better than an IS, and an IS is too small anyway. I actually had that Prius, that's a Gen 2 Prius ahead of us here, which is a spectacular car, by the way, but a little bit too small. And so my rationale for getting this one actually was, well, I really like that Prius, that body style. That one doesn't look like it's in very good shape, but I had a beautiful one in the same color as this, actually. But it was lacking quite a bit of the luxury, luxury touches. It felt a bit Spartan, and it was a little bit small. In that car, I got between 4 and 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers. Actually, those are brilliant cars. But this one, I think, better suits my needs. It's certainly a lot more comfortable. So it's quite a bit wider, more room in it. And it's just, but the most thing is the heated and ventilated seats and the luxury touches of this car. But for me, it was that Prius, just in a bigger size with more luxury equipment. That had a 1.5 liter engine. This is a 2.4. I think that had around 100 horsepower, maybe a little bit more. And this one's about 190. So this one's actually quite fast for what it is if you floor it. But it's just not that kind of a car. This is the joy in driving this car is driving it in such a way that the engine doesn't even come on. The satisfaction of driving smoothly and economically and using a little bit of fuel, and then just sitting back and relaxing, which there's a lot to be said for that on journeys around the city, where a car that is just cosseting, relaxing, I'd rather that than some super duper sports sedan with suspension that was turned at the Nürburgring. Because why do I want to go crashing around through potholes if I'm driving my kids to school? I have enough excitement with 3 kids. I don't need any more excitement from my car. I just want to get them to school. Okay, that's all I want to do, and with as least drama as possible. So, with that, I'm going to end this driving video on the Lexus HS250h. I think it's a great car. It's a good-looking car. It works well for what it's designed to do. I think there's enough interesting technical spec that it keeps the interest of a car enthusiast. I don't think you need a Nürburgring tuned car to drive your kids to school with and to call yourself a car enthusiast. I mean, this is basically I think an engineering, this whole hybrid or Toyota hybrid drive, Synergy drive, I mean, I think is a technical masterpiece, just to get it to work at all, and then to get it to work for 300,000 kilometers without braking is an incredible automotive feat, far more interesting than the latest hypercar, I think. So with all that, this is a great car. It's JDM car, 33,073 kilometers at the end of this drive. It looks new inside, it looks new outside, it drives like a new car. You know, it's going to be bought somewhere in the teens, mid-teens, something like that. You know, you put 100,000 kilometers on this and you'll probably still get 10 grand for the car when you're done. It's going to get 6 liters per 100 kilometers. It's not going to use any brakes. You can go to the Toyota dealership where an oil change is 150 bucks, not 600 at Mercedes or BMW at Porsche. So it offers a nice place to be, a nice car, reliable transportation, low servicing costs, low running costs, low overall cost of ownership. And, you know, this is a nice car. So I think, I mean, that's why I got it, and that's why I'm sure I can't be the only one that's going to see the appeal of this machine. But I guess I'll leave it to bat bidders to see how much they like it. So with that, Lromanosky from Calgary, Canada. Please like and subscribe.